There are some things you should know if you want to start collecting or investing in sports cards, so let's go through them. What's going on, guys? Matt here, back again with another video. If you're new to the sports card hobby, this video will be very important to help you get out on your sports card journey. For those a bit experienced, don't just click off. These tips can be a reminder for you guys as well. The sports card world can be very intimidating to people that have come from nowhere. There are a lot of sets, a lot of variations, and a lot of things to collect. Over the time, I've been fortunate enough to deal with many card veterans, and then also be able to learn from people that have a lot of knowledge in the game. And in doing so, pass that knowledge out to new investors and collectors. I've also made mistakes and learnt from them, but that's all a part of the learning process. And like I did too, if you guys learn anything, make sure you pass that information on to someone who's asking a question, no matter how dumb or stupid the question may seem. Let's roll into tip number one, which is learning how to determine market value on a card. If there's one tip that I will regard as the most important when it comes to collecting and especially investing, it's this tip right here. Too many times do I see people joining Facebook groups and buying cards without even checking market value and paying over comps. And then these collectors try to sell these cards off at an inflated price. They're unable to find anyone that will buy them, and then they lose money and then leave the hobby completely. Market value can be assessed by looking at eBay past sold prices. I know a small minority of people aren't happy with eBay prices sometimes, but that's traditionally what's used. There are some great resources out there when it comes to checking market value. I personally use 130point.com and sellthepeak.com. If you find a card that you're keen on purchasing, search it up. I'll give an example here. If you're trying to find a Luka Doncic Select Concourse Rookie base, I'd keep the search simple and just write Luka Doncic Select Rookie. Keeping searches concise is better, as I find searches like Luka Doncic Concourse Base Rookie Select can actually hide listings which don't include base or concourse in the listing name. You can also add exclusions like I have to hide other cards that you don't want to be seeing, so like graded cards or even silver cards. When I'm assessing the market value, I don't just take the last sold price that I can see there, unless there are barely any sales. If there are a lot of transactions, I actually look at the average of the last 3 sales and use that to base off my market value. Going through this example, if I wanted to buy a Luka Doncic Select Rookie, based off this search, I would say the market value is around $250 US. So if I was desperate, I'd probably offer anything up to around $260 US. Obviously, it's all down to what the seller wants for it, but that's a good starting point on market value. Tip number 2 is to learn the market cycles with sports cards. Like investing in the stock market, sports cards have their own market cycle as well. It's actually easier than the share market because you can actually time your purchasing and selling with the market cycle. This tip is very useful in maximizing profit and minimizing loss. Again, I've noticed people panic selling when the market is down, and then I've also seen people experience FOMO when the market's really hot. I'll keep it simple by using basketball, but most sports are very similar. The start of the off season is where you experience a dip, which is normal because a lot of the attention is being shifted away, and in my opinion, one of the best times to buy. Once free agency and the draft start to occur, you start to see associated players that may get affected start to make a bit of a change. In the weeks leading up to the season, excitement starts to go up, and this causes the prices to go up as well. When the season starts, because there's a lot of attention, the market stays very hot. This actually can be a good time to sell and take some profit if you need it. Once the season has settled in, hype is normally driven away to other things, and this causes prices to go down. In my opinion, I think that's not the stage we're currently in right now, and also it means it's probably the time to buy. Then what you'll find leading up to the playoffs is players potentially that are going to play in the playoffs will have their cards start to rise, and the players that aren't going to make the playoffs start to drop. When the playoffs start, as each round occurs, each successful team or player that moves through have their cards go up, and each player that gets knocked out will have their prices go down. Now, this is actually the best time to sell playoff players that you have a short or a medium term view on. It's actually also the best time to buy non-playoff players because there's little attention on them as well. Then this whole process repeats again. Knowing this whole process is important because when the market's down, you're not going to be panic selling and taking a loss. But also on the flip side, if the market's really hot, it allows you to take a step back and not to buy anything at a high point. Tip number 3 is to have an open mind and consistently learn from others. Being humble is important because it allows you to listen to others regardless of how much you think you know. On top of that, the sports card market is constantly evolving as well. So if you're too narrow-minded, you might miss the next hottest thing. For me personally, I watch videos daily and listen to podcasts daily about sports cards. My favorite one out of all of them would probably be Sam Dungs from Slab Stocks, so check that one out if you guys haven't seen it already. I understand that may be a bit too much for people, but just keep an open mind on certain trends going nuts. I get a little bit annoyed at people who dismiss modern sports cards and pump up vintage sports cards because in 20 years time, modern sports cards won't hold up. which I agree to an extent. But as I've spoken about before, modern sports cards provide the most opportunity in the short and medium term, in my opinion. In saying that you've got to learn from others, also draw a fine line between completely relying on someone else's opinion versus doing your own research. It's a little bit hypocritical coming from me because I give my opinion out in videos recommending certain players and certain cards, but I always encourage you to do your own research before making decisions. Tip number 4 is when starting out investing, start in a sport that you know very well. I think this is common sense. It's hard enough learning the card game, but then also learning players and teams of a new sport. For me personally, I collect basketball and the NFL as those are my two go-to sports. But as of recent, with the alternative sports card market heating up, I've taken an interest in tennis, athletics, and swimming just because I know it very well as well. But I've also gone against this rule and invested in soccer, which I don't know much about or support anyone, and to date is probably the worst sport I've ever invested in. Another thing about investing or collecting in sports cards is if you're trying to collect anyone, make sure you actually like the person. You don't want to be buying up Zion cards if you don't like him at all, and then you end up not supporting him. Investing and collecting in players you like will lead to happiness and enjoyment within the hobby, and that will give you a better longevity. The last tip that I'm gonna give you guys today is to learn your sets. I consistently get people messaging me on Instagram showing me Chronicles cards of players, but in reality, Chronicles cards are very cheap, and it's a very low-end rookie set. Now, I'm not knocking Chronicles as a set. They're actually great to collect your star rookies very cheap. But as an investor, unless you're a big name like a Luka or a Zion, they very rarely ever blow up. Another set that gets hyped up every year as well is Prism Draft Picks. And these are the college cards of NBA players. Now, these cards are actually normally the first set to get released, and people get excited when they come out. But long term, they don't hold up because people don't have an interest in players in their college uniform. I'm not knocking it if you want to collect it cheaply, but don't expect to make any money unless you sell early. Knowing which sets are valued highly is also crucial. The big three, which are Prism, Optic, and Select, are the most wanted by collectors and investors. Knowing sets can be great for finding bargains. As I've said in previous videos, I've been able to find select courtside silver cards for very cheap, when in fact they are extremely short printed. Another thing with sets as well is when they are released, try not to buy in the first week, as there's no market comparisons and basically the price is set to the highest buyer. This is actually the best time to sell if you're lucky enough to open a box within the first week of release. We saw this recently with LaMelo Ball's rookie hoops card going for $150 US upon release, and now they're going for around $20 US. I actually saw people selling Ja Morant's iconic Luminance card for $500 Aussie on release, and now they're going for 30 to 40 Aussie dollars. But that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know down below if there's any other tips that you want to be giving out to new collectors or investors. As always, guys, I appreciate the support you guys have been giving me. Give us a like if you're enjoying the content and hit the subscribe button if you guys haven't already. And I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.